parts on a MotoGP bike, and around 200 of them need changing at various intervals due to wear and tear. Let's take a look at some of the more important ones. Over an average race weekend, from FP1 to the end of the race, a rider can put in around 500 kilometers on their bike. Over this period, the teams have to change the oil, water and chain. Every 1,000 kilometers, the teams have to replace the sprockets, clutch plates and the carbon brake discs and pads. Every 1,200 kilometers, the teams must completely replace the wheels. Every 2,000 kilometers, or around 4 races, teams must completely remove and replace the engine. Every 4,000 kilometers, or around 8 races, just under half a GP season, teams have to replace the handlebars and seats. After around 9 races, half a GP season, the teams replace the bike's frame and swing arm. That's parts mileage in MotoGP. As much grip as possible, whilst preventing oversteer and high-siding. The inertial platform in the IMU detects the lean angle, while sensors in the wheels detect the amount of wheel spin, indicating how much grip the tyres have and how much contact there is with the track. If the rear wheel loses traction, meaning the grip drops and the wheel starts spinning faster than the front one, the back wheel can swing out wide, causing oversteer. Should this happen, the sensors talk to the ECU, which cuts the power by cutting one of the cylinders, closing electronic throttle, or reducing the ignition timing. This is important because if the bike were to suddenly regain grip, it could high-side, causing a crash and potentially injuring the rider. The teams can tailor the traction control to each rider and bike, as well as customizing it for every turn. As the grip decreases due to tyre wear, the speed, or the nature of the corner, the traction control increases the traction to maintain contact with the track. And that is traction control in MotoGP. Chiang International Circuit in Thailand for the very first time. Racing at a new track can be difficult for the teams to set up the bike. What we do know though is that in Thailand it's hot and humid. The teams can therefore increase the size of the carbon brake discs to 340mm, allowing them to keep cooler. If the rider already uses a 340mm discs, then teams can add airflow intakes to direct the air to the brakes and keep them cool. The grip level is a big question mark for the Chiang International Circuit, so the teams will be trying out different suspension harnesses to improve the grip. The softer springs create more grip by transferring more of the bike and rider's weight onto the tyres. This can of course affect the wear of the tyres. For the long straights out of turns 1 and 2, as well as the tighter parts of the circuit, the teams might play with the length of the bike's wheelbase and height. Lengthening the wheelbase and lowering the height can affect how much the bike wheelies when accelerating away, but can affect the turning stability. Let's see this weekend how the teams set up the bikes for the pt.III Thailand Grand Prix. As each track is a different length, the teams must carefully calculate how much fuel is used over a race distance. The amount of fuel that a bike uses can be electronically adjusted to fit the circuit, but the teams must use all 22 litres for maximum power, without, of course, running out before the finish line. Naturally, temperature affects the volume of the fuel, with the volume increasing in hotter climates and decreasing in colder ones. As a result, fuel is measured in weight by kilograms rather than by litre. For example, a full 22-litre tank will hold 16.5 kilograms of fuel at 15 degrees Celsius. At 25 degrees, the same weight of fuel would cause the tank to overflow, whereas at 5 degrees, the tank would be only 3/4 full. So the teams have to adjust the amount they use based on ambient temperature. Teams are allowed to cool the fuel by up to 15 degrees below ambient temperature before the race to fit more in the tank, which leads to more power. The rider leans into a turn to create a centripetal force, forcing the bike through the turn and counteracting the centrifugal force, which pulls the bike and rider outwards. The rider starts the turn by counter-steering. Contrary to what you might expect, the rider actually steers in the opposite direction of the turn, causing the bike to lean into the corner. If the rider didn't do this and turn the handlebars into the turn without leaning at such high speeds, they'd be thrown outwards due to the centrifugal force, like a high side and undoubtedly crashing. Once committed to the turn, the rider continues through it, leaning, often using their knee and even elbow for stability, and begins to steer into the turn. The amount that the rider will lean depends on how tight the corner is, how fast they are going, and the grip levels of the tyre and surface. And that is leaning and cornering in MotoGP. Trail braking is a technique that riders use as they approach the turn, applying the front brake to reduce speed and slowly letting off the brake as they lean through and exit the turn. MotoGP tyre is specially designed to give the rider's grip at a 64-degree lean, despite the contact patch with the asphalt being around the size of a credit card. The bike's carbon brakes, meanwhile, are designed for consistent brake level feel from the start of the race until the checkered flag has fallen. Preparing to enter the corner while still upright, the rider will release the throttle and squeeze the brake. As he enters into the corner, he'll counter steer and lean into it. He'll maintain the force on the brake lever throughout. As long as the grip is good, he'll hold onto the brake for as long as possible as he approaches the apex before releasing the brake and opening up the throttle to accelerate away. And that is trail braking in MotoGP. Fundamental ways of preventing the bike from wheeling, looking at the electronics, the fairing and the rear brake. Starting with the electronics or ECU on the bike, sensors detect when the bike is beginning to wheelie and send information to the ECU. The ECU then talks with the engine, briefly cutting the power and then letting it increase again as the front wheel lowers back down. Now, with the fairing, teams use an aero package which, like a spoiler on a car, directs the air upwards, therefore pushing the bike down, almost the opposite of the wings on an aeroplane. The faster the bike is going, the more downforce is created. And finally, with the rear brake, the riders can apply the rear brake via the foot pedal when accelerating, slowing the bike down slightly so that the front wheel lowers back down. Teams and riders can mix and match these methods as needed, and that is anti-wheelie in MotoGP.